Yo, bro, what's good? There is all the time in our hearts and in our mind where DJ Khaled, a new album by him, it felt like the whole industry had to stop and pay attention. If Khaled was dropping, it wasn't just another album announcement, it felt like a moment. The features were huge. It's like he was bringing a whole crew of A-list rappers and just putting them together on perfect beats. Visuals were loud, the messaging was everywhere, and the whole thing was built to feel bigger than the music itself. That was the formula at the time. And guess what? It worked. DJ Khaled figured out how to turn star power into an identity. He wasn't trying to be the best rapper in the room. He was the guy who could gather the biggest names, put them on one record, and make it feel like a victory lap before the song even came out. And that's what made him special. He knew how to make an album rollout feel like an event instead of just a regular old release. But eventually, that same formula started to wear thin. And that's where the decline starts to show up. Because once the audience knows what a rollout is going to look like before it happens, the excitement drops a bit. Big features, big visuals, big talk. And Khaled has a lot of confidence and he thinks he's a big title, which he does. And the same structure, different year usually for his rollouts. At first, that consistency made DJ Khaled feel reliable, but over time, it made him feel predictable. And predictable is dangerous in the music industry. Not because the rollout is bad, but because music depends on surprise, urgency, and the feeling that something is happening right now. If fans can map out the whole campaign before the song even drops, the rollout loses some of its power. It stops feeling like a takeover and starts feeling like a routine. And that was the major first shift for Khaled. It wasn't that Khaled had stopped knowing how to create noise. He still knows how to make a lot of noise, and everyone on IG knows that. The problem is that the noise doesn't always translate into the same kind of cultural pressure anymore. And that matters. Because I think there's a difference, man. When it comes to the music industry, being visible and being unavoidable are two different things. Khaled used to be both. Now he's more in the first category than the second. People still recognize the name. They still know the brand. And they still know the voice, the slogans, and the energy. All those like IG memes, like that's gonna be remembered forever. But doesn't automatically mean every new rollout feels essential coming from him. And that's the part people like me notice even if they don't say it out loud. The music itself also plays a role here. Khaled built his lane around assembling giant collabs. That was always the appeal for him, bro. And he could get major artists on a record and make it feel like a championship lineup. Like he had those, Baby with Dirk and all these other songs with Drake and, He's brought some legendary shit to the game. Like, I'm not gonna deny it, bro. But I feel like these collabs for him are, a gift and a curse, a double-edged sword. Because it creates a weird problem. Once fans start focusing on the features, then on the project, the identity of the rollout weakens. At a certain point, I think all of us are like, not gonna ask what Khaled is about to drop. No one's asking that shit. Genuinely, no one bro, if you're asking when is Khaled dropping, brother, you have a lot of thinking to do, bro. And you gotta start asking yourself, which artists are actually carrying these albums that he produces? But I won't, again, I'm not taking away from his greatness. He's a great producer. But now there's this huge difference between, when is Khaled about to drop versus now you're like, all right, bro. Really? We're talking about DJ Khaled? The dude who be talking shit to his wife and whose wife be slapping the shit out of him? Come on, bro. It's the big 26. We ain't about to be talking about the big Khaled. Come on, bro. But brings me back to the audience again. If we're only checking for the names on the record, then the brand itself is no longer the center of gravity. It becomes the packaging around the movement instead of the reason for the moment. And once that happens, every new rollout has to fight harder to feel important. And that's why so many of his later campaigns feel so mediocre, even though they have the same ingredients, but it just feels like there's less impact. The internet changed too, though, because DJ Khaled came up in an era when big personality could carry a release for a long time. If you were loud, confident, and everywhere, the rollout could dominate attention. But now that the internet moves faster than that, people want immediacy. They want updates in real time, and they want artists and personalities to feel plugged into the culture every day, not just when the album is about to come. And that's where Khaled's style starts to feel a little older. Not outdated yet, I'd say, just less dominant than before. Because the culture now rewards constant motion more than giant, polished, once-in-a-while moments. The rollout has to compete with everything happening online at once, too. And if the audience doesn't feel immediate urgency, they move on fast. And that's why a Khaled rollout does not hit me like it used to. It's not that the people hate Khaled's brand and what he does now. It's that they've seen the machine enough times to understand how it works. And once the machine is visible, again, this illusion that Khaled is big and bad is just getting weaker. There's also the image shift, which is maybe the biggest thing of all. At some point, DJ Khaled became bigger as a brand than a music figure. That sounds like a win, because in a lot of ways it is. He created a long-lasting identity that extends way beyond one song or one project. But there's a downside, like I mentioned earlier. When your personality is the product, people start consuming the image before they consume the music. And once that happens, your rollout has to do twice the work. It has to sell the spectacle and the actual project. If the music doesn't immediately justify the hype, people start thinking the rollout is bigger than the result. And that's a brutal spot to be in. Because the moment your rollout starts feeling oversized compared to the reaction, the audience starts to sense a mismatch. And once that mismatch becomes consistent, the decline becomes part of the perception. That's really what happened here. Khaled didn't vanish. He didn't stop being relevant in any sense. He still has a name to him, the reputation and the connections, and the ability to create a big moment if the situation is right. But the era where his rollout alone could command the entire conversation is clearly not as strong as it once was. And that's the real story about Khaled right now. It's not really that dramatic of a collapse, and I'm not trying to say he's falling off. It's not an overnight downfall either. It's just a gradual loss that I've been watching on the outside of the kind of rollout power that made everything he touched feel larger than life. And I think that's why I brought this video to the table, because people think downfall stories have to be explosive. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the decline is just a slow change in how the audience reacts. The rollout still looks big, but the cultural response gets smaller. The branding still looks strong, but the urgency fades. And your name still matters in a sense, but the moment you bring up, the moments you try and orchestrate, they don't hit the same. That's the DJ Khaled story right now. He built his whole lane around making things enormous, but the culture moved, the audience changed, and now the same energy doesn't land with the same force. So the real question isn't whether DJ Khaled had a great era. He did. He'll forever be a legend. But the real question is whether he can ever make a rollout feel that unavoidable again.